Start by grabbing a few oranges at the market. Slice off just enough of the orange to reveal the flesh, and scoop out as much of the flesh as possible. For the jack-o'-lantern faces, use a sharp paring knife to cut out eyes, a nose, and a mouth. You can freehand it or use a marker to give you guidelines as you cut. Crumple tinfoil into a ball and place a ball inside each hollowed out orange. Place the oranges upright on a baking sheet and bake in a 200-degree oven for 90 minutes. Turn the oranges upside down and bake for another 60 minutes. Remove the foil balls and bake for another 30 minutes. Your jack-o'-lanterns are now ready to display. Place a tea light in each and arrange on a windowsill, mantel, or patio table.
I thrifted a dolly, pillow cover, and a tablecloth and turned it into the cutest decor. I cut the foam cone down, hot glued a foam ball to the top, and once it was dry, I placed a thrifted pillow cover over top and colored black eyes and a mouth with an acrylic paint pen. I used hot glue to adjust the fabric and glued a dried flower to the front so it looks like the ghost is holding it. I repeated the above steps for a small doily. I cut eyes out of a sheet of black felt and hot glued them on. Then I went a step further and hot glued dried flowers on top to make the cutest flower crown. For the third one, I placed a large foam ball on the top of an upside down tomato cage, colored the eyes on a thrifted tablecloth, and I placed it over top. Now I've got the best spooky cute ghosts for inside and outside this season.
I was shopping in Dollar Tree the other day and I came across some mop heads in the cleaning aisle. So there was this mop head and then also this one for $1.50. So I'm going to begin with this mop head first. This is the one with the pieces that are more like yarn. And I'm just going to begin by unraveling the yarn pieces. I want my ghost to be nice and full and full of texture. So I unraveled all the pieces. And then next I took this 16-ounce glass bottle with a lid. And I'm going to go ahead, take the lid off, and I'm going to take my mop head and open it up from the bottom. And then there's a little black piece there, and I'm just going to hot glue this lid upside down onto that black piece. Once I have the lid glued on, I'm going to let it set for a good 5 minutes just to make sure the glue is fully in place and set. Then I'm going to take my bottle and I'm going to screw it back on. Then I'm going to flip this back over and now our mop head stands up on its own. To make a cute little hat for my ghost, I'm going to take some black thick material and I'm just going to trace around a flower pot to cut out 2 circles. Once I have my 2 circles cut out, I do need one circle to be slightly smaller than the other circle because I'm going to be making a witch hat and I want to make sure that I don't have an unsightly edge to my hat. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut out one circle just slightly smaller by taking off about 1/4 of an inch. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to glue around the circle. So I'm going to glue around and then I'm going to pull the bigger circle over top to have a more finished edge. So I'm just going to work my way around here, continuing to glue as I go. Once I'm done with my circle, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come back with the same black material and I'm going to cut out a square that is 5 by 5 inches. This is going to make the top of our witch hat. So I'm just going to fold it in half in a triangle shape and I'm going to glue it together with the right sides facing in just down one side of the fabric. Then once that glue is set, I'm going to let it sit for about a few minutes. I'm going to flip it back inside right and then I have a little cone shape. So once I have my cone shape here to attach my hat together, I'm actually going to take the circle part and I'm going to fold it in half and I'm going to cut out a circle directly in the middle of the hat. This circle we want to be big enough so that it fits over the top of the mop head, just like so. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the cone part and I'm just going to glue that directly on top of the mop head, securing it into place and then letting the glue set. To give my ghost a cute little face, I'm going to take the same black material and I'm going to roughly draw out 3 circles. So 2 circles for the eyes and 1 circle for the mouth. You can make these any shapes or sizes that you like depending on the look that you like. Once I have my circles cut out, I'm just going to take some hot glue and I'm going to glue them directly onto the yarn pieces. And this is the finished little ghost. For the other mop head, you do exactly the same process. Repeating with this mop head style, you can fluff out these little pieces if you like, and this will just give you two different types of ghosts. So here are my cute, adorable finished ghosts in my little Halloween display here, and I think these turned out so cute, and they cost me barely nothing to make. Grab yourself a tomato cage for this fun Halloween fall-inspired idea. I live out in the country, so luckily for me, I have a surplus of grapevine. So my mother and I began to pull the grapevine out of the bush. This is a little hard, but totally worth it. But for this project, you're going to need a bunch of grapevine. So I began taking apart my tomato cage. I wanted to take off the bottom rung to make it a little smaller. So I cut off the bottom hoop, and now it sits very nicely on here. And I'm going to zip tie the tomato cage to the wire wreath form. Now you can use wire as well. I prefer to use zip ties because I find they hold the wire better together. When you use wire, sometimes wire on wire, it can slip a little. Then I'm going to take my natural grapevine here and I'm going to begin pruning it and taking off any unnecessary sticks and leaves. And I'm going to begin by wrapping it in a circle around the base of the wreath form. And using more zip ties, I'm going to zip tie this on. You can get special wire that's made for grapevine wreath, and I kind of wish that I would have got that just so it blended in a little bit better, but I'm also just working with what I have here. I began to manipulate the tomato cage a little bit because I didn't want such a pointy look, so I bent the wires in a little bit and made it a little bit more quirky. I continued wrapping the grapevine around the tomato cage, working all the way up to the top. So I continued working along. It is a little bit bouncy, so you do have to kind of hold it in place and zip tie it as you go. You just finish it off however you like at the top. For my base, I wanted the brim to be a little bit wider, so I added more grapevine down at the bottom, just zip tying it on to the other pieces. I finished it off with some wire fairy lights, just wrapping it all around. And here it is on my porch, ready for fall and Halloween, a quirky, natural looking witch hat that also lights up at night because I put the fairy lights on. So here it is at night. It looks super fun, super cute, and totally fits with my style and decor.
If you've ever wondered what to do with those little plastic pumpkin pails that you can find at Walmart this time of year, so you're going to want to grab a sharp X-Acto knife and we're going to cut out the eyes, nose, and mouths of these little pails. Once you're finished cutting out the eyes, nose, and mouths of these jack-o'-lanterns, you're going to grab some fishing line. So you're going to take your fishing line and you're not going to do a single line, but you're going to double it and tie a knot and then use that to loop through the handle on the pail. In order to hang these, I actually have a window valance that I'm going to attach these to. I decided to grab some 3M little clear plastic hooks that I could easily remove afterwards, but you could also use something like a push pin. Once I hung these, I thought, it needs something else. So I got these black bats from Walmart as well and hung a few of those as filler and then just waited for evening and turned on the lights and voila. We have a lovely window display, and even my teenagers thought it looked pretty great. So it's a great way to celebrate the season and have something nice for your neighbors to look at.
Take a piece of foam core board and macrame cord. Begin cutting longer strings of macrame cord and place the first piece in the middle using your hot glue. Work outward to the edges, then trim the ends of the cord and outside edges of the foam core when done. Take a brush and begin unwinding the ends of the macrame cord until they are completely undone. Take black cardstock and a pencil, draw circles, and then cut them out and place them as eyes and mouths on top of the rope. There you have it, a cheap way to create your own easy DIY boho Halloween decor for your home for less than $5.
I grabbed this box of borax for this spooky decor. I filled a large pot with water and poured in half the box of borax. I stirred frequently and heated it until the borax was completely dissolved. The water was near a boil at this point and it was clear. I placed a skull that we had collected from the forest into the water and positioned it so it was fully submerged. I removed from the heat and let it sit untouched. After 18 hours, I pulled the skull out and it created the spookiest crystallized skull, perfect for Halloween decor. To clean the pot, I reheated it until the borax was fully dissolved again and then drained it.
Let's make some cute ghost lawn decor pieces using my brand new Glowforge Aura machine. First, place your material in the machine. Then, upload a cute pre-made ghost lawn art piece using the Glowforge app. Then, press the flashing button to print your ghost out and watch the machine do its magic. After it's done printing, take it out of the machine and use some Gorilla Tape to get rid of all the masking on the piece. Then go outside and use some white spray paint and fully cover the ghost on the front and the back side, letting them dry fully in between. After the spray paint is dry, add in a layer of finishing spray to protect it since they are going to be outside in the elements. Now choose where to place your cute little ghost outside. I placed mine in our outdoor raised garden beds, but they would look so cute anywhere outside in your lawn.
I grabbed a palette to get my porch ready for Halloween. I used my battery chainsaw to easily cut the edges of the pallet boards. I used a hammer to bang the boards off and then removed the nails. I lined the boards up and used one vertically to create an even space between each board. I drew a pumpkin shape over 4 of the boards and then carefully marked the back of each board so I knew which way was up and which order they went in. I also marked 2 boards to put on the back lengthwise. I sanded the front and edges of each board with 150 grit sandpaper, just enough to reduce slivers. I diluted orange spice-colored acrylic paint with water and painted the sanded surfaces on each board, then immediately wiped the extra paint off with a clean cotton rag. I also painted the back 2 boards. Then I flipped them over with the back side up and spaced them on a flat surface in order, using that 1 extra board as a spacer again. I placed the 2 back pieces on vertically, making sure that all the wood boards were touching it. I used 3/4 inch nails in my 18 gauge brad nailer and secured the boards together, nailing from the back side. I drew out a stem, cut it with my jigsaw, sanded and painted it with watered down woodland brown colored acrylic paint. I wiped the extra off with a rag the same way I did the orange. I used a pencil to draw a face and painted it with black acrylic paint, and now I have 2 super cute jack-o'-lanterns that will never blow out.
Grab some Dollar Tree glass bottles for this spooky fun project. I started by mixing up some Mod Podge, water, and a little bit of used coffee grounds. Paint this mixture onto your glass bottles to give it an aged and worn look. Once you finish painting your bottles with this mixture, let it dry completely. To change up the color and the aged look, I mixed up a little bit of watered down paint with that Mod Podge mix. Paint that onto a different bottle, and then you can also add a little more of the dirty look by rubbing on some of those used coffee grounds. After rubbing on the used coffee grounds, then go ahead and give this another layer of your Mod Podge and paint mixture. Then I grabbed some brown cardstock and some of these potion label stamps to make labels for all of my bottles. Once I had all of my stamps done, then I just cut these down to fit onto the bottles. To really give these an aged and vintage vibe, I'm running some water around the edges, and then I'll tear my cardstock to leave those edges nice and rigid. To attach my labels, I'm using some Mod Podge on the bottle, and then I'll also add a little bit of Mod Podge to the back of the labels. Then just add your labels to the fronts of your bottles and add another coat of Mod Podge over the labels and the entire bottle to seal everything in. Once you're done, just let these dry completely, and then you're left with these creepy Halloween potion bottles. Start by gathering yellow, white, and orange balloons from your package. I started by cutting off the stem part and the bottom part of my white and yellow balloons. Work around your jar, pulling the edges of the balloon so that it covers the top part of your jars. You'll want to overlap each of your balloons just a little bit. Once I had both of my jars complete, then I just grabbed some Dollar Tree raffia and made little bows for around the tops of them. And then you're left with these candy corn inspired fall jars. Grab some Dollar Tree mason jars for this Halloween inspired project. I started by mixing some brown paint with a little bit of water and then used my paintbrush to dab this down into the jar. I continued working that watered down brown paint around in my jar until it gave a creepy, dirty look. Once the layer of brown watered down paint was dry, then I'm going in with some watered down black paint and my paintbrush and just dabbing this all over the inside of my jar to give it a spooky vibe. Then to finish these off, I grabbed some of my black creepy cloth, added it to the top of my jar. Then I screwed on these hanging jar tops over top of the creepy cloth. Snip the creepy cloth with some scissors and then tear it to give it a ragged look. Add in some LED candles and then you have these spooky lanterns for Halloween.
Turn your recycling glass into these 3 Halloween projects. I grabbed a light fixture we've been wanting to replace, I cleaned it and painted it orange with acrylic paint. After it dried, I painted a second coat and added some light brown for texture. Once dry, I hot glued a stick and faux leaf to the top and finished it off with scrap fabric tie. I placed it in my garden and now I have an adorable pumpkin for outside that will last many seasons. I saved my glass recycling bottles, wrapped them in a plastic bag, and taped around the top edge with painter's tape. I sprayed a couple squirts of water inside the glass and then sprayed mirror effect paint inside the glass. You don't want any on the outside. I then shook the liquid around inside of the glass, drained it, and removed the plastic. After it dried, I decided to spray a bit more of the mirror paint, swished it around, and let it sit flat to dry. Then I applied a potion label that I made with my Cricut, and now I have the spookiest potion bottles for the Halloween season. I cleaned 4 wine glasses and spray painted them white. Once dry, I applied acrylic paint in 2 to 3 coats, letting it dry completely between coats. I painted 1 orange on the cup part and green on the stem, 1 green on the cup part and black on the stem, 1 all purple, and I left 1 white. When the final coat of paint was dry, I used a brush and acrylic paint markers to add details. I found the acrylic paint markers to work the best. I also hot glued gauze and a spider for more embellishments. Place with the cup side down, add a candle, and you've got some super fun Halloween decorations.
We're going to start this project with 5 skulls from the dollar store. Take your Sharpie and make a circle at the top of the skull, and then we're going to get some kind of a knife. I'm using an X-Acto knife, but it's one that you use to carve wood. So you want something that's strong, to be super careful when you're doing this. And it worked well when I was turning it sideways and kind of sawing it. And you're going to take that out, and we're going to do that to all of the skulls. Then we're going to take an assortment of colors, and you saw that I had the colors in kind of a pink rainbow, starting with the cream color first. So we're going to paint each one of the skulls in the different colors of your rainbow, and I picked the pink palette, and we're going to need 2 coats for this. And I started with my first color, and then I just continued on with the palette that I chose. And what I did in between each coat is I took the skull and I put it outside, and it dried really quickly that way. And it really only took 2 coats. And this project is a really cool project because if you're somebody who wants to decorate for Halloween, but you're not into like all the spooky stuff, this is your project. Next, we're going to seal the skulls, and I used a Mod Podge sealer, which was a matte finish. You can use a shiny finish if you want. And you're going to spray a thin coat of the sealer on each skull. And the reason I like using this Mod Podge version is because it dries super quick. This Halloween DIY decor project is already turning out so cute, and I love the palette choice that I used. Now we're going to take some faux flowers or some different pieces that you find, and we're going to add those in the top of the skull. So now I'm guessing you already know what we're doing. We're going to make decorations that are kind of more boho and will go with any decor. So in order to make your floral arrangement more stable in the hole that you've created, you're going to have to use something to stabilize it. So what I did was I took a paper bag and I crumpled up a little piece and I put it in the back of the hole to kind of make a wedge to hold it more secure. Now you could just make the hole smaller, but I just made it a little bigger because I wanted to make my arrangement more full on the top of the skull. I have to say this turned out super cute, and I think it's a great alternative if you don't want spooky Halloween decorations. And remember, this is about your designs. So if you have a different palette in your house, like blues, it would look fantastic.
I grabbed a 14-inch grapevine and I spray painted it black. Then I went to my local craft store and I found some fairy lights. Then what we can do is we can take our battery pack, place it behind, and start wrapping the wreath with the lights. So this is wire, so you can actually manipulate these lights into any shape you would like. And then just tuck your wire back underneath. And that's what it looks like with $2.99 worth of lights. So now to secure your battery pack, what you can do is just take it, wrap it around itself, and place it on the back of your wreath. So we're just going to take that. We're going to take a pipe cleaner from nickseasonaldecor.com and then just secure like so. Now we have these bat sprays, so we're working with the mini, but we also have larger bat sprays in stock. These are so cute, you guys, and I think they're going to blend in really nicely with the wreath. So we're going to cut off each bat individually using our wire snips. And these are all wired as well, so you can bend them out, stretch them out, and then place them throughout. So we're going to work with a couple of these sprays. So we're going to take our bat pick, dip it in our glue skillet, and if you've never seen this before, essentially what it is a glue gun, but the only difference is that all you have to do is just dip your stems into a skillet. So we're just dipping them in, adding a generous amount of hot glue, and then working these adorable bats right into the black grapevine. We're going to place them around the edges so that they show through, and then we'll place some in the middle as well. So you can do this with ghosts, you can do this with pumpkins, and by spray painting a grapevine, you're able to do so much with it because there's so many different things that you can match it to. So the most important step with adding these bats in is just making sure that you're not getting hot glue on the lights. Other than that, you're good to go, and you can place them however you would like. And here's how the wreath looks with all of the bats in place. But now at this point in time, since these are wired picks, you can bend them and manipulate them to shape and get a really cohesive, even wreath. So make sure that they're all spaced apart evenly and they're going in the same direction because that flow really maintains a beautiful wreath. After that, you can hang it up and you have a beautiful wreath on your door. So let's see how this looks on my wall. So here is how the wreath turned out, you guys, and I absolutely love it. So very easy to put together. A 14-inch grapevine that we spray painted black. You can spray paint it whatever color you would like. Make sure it's indoor-outdoor paint. Then we came back in with one pack of little fairy lights. That was $2.99, and it added a lot of sparkle to the wreath. And then we came back in with 3 bat sprays. So you can make this wreath easily for less than $10, $15. A very economical design that is perfect for beginners. So if you've never made a wreath before, this is something you proudly can make and easily.
I grabbed a pool noodle from Dollar Tree and cut it into a 20-inch long piece. Then I sprayed it with black paint to give it a dark base. Next, I picked up these shatterproof black ornaments and a bunch of Halloween-themed decor from Dollar Tree. Once the paint dried, I started applying hot glue to the ornaments and attached them one by one around the pool noodle. Make sure the tips of the ornaments face inward or down so that they are not visible. After arranging the ornaments around the perimeter, I grabbed a couple of Halloween-themed floral decor pieces and inserted them into the pool noodle approximately 4 inches away from the ends. Then I continued covering the remaining top part with the black ornaments. Remember to add hot glue only on the ornaments and not on the pool noodle, as the hot glue can melt away the foam. Following that, I cut a few more decor pieces and inserted them into the spaces between the ornaments. You can add any kind of spooky decorations to this bunch to create a fantastic centerpiece for your Halloween-themed dinner table.
Can you guess what I made for Halloween using these foam dice from Dollar Tree? First up, I grabbed my foam dice and some craft paint. Using a foam paintbrush, I covered each dice with 2 coats of paint to get a nice even coverage. Don't rush this, let the first coat dry completely before applying the second. Once the paint was dry, I wanted to add some hair to my monsters as well. So I pulled out my trusty hot glue gun and went to work creating a textured hair effect on top of each of the dice. This was super easy, just swirl the glue around randomly to mimic some messy hair. Once that dried, I painted over the glue with black craft paint. This gave the monsters that creepy but still cute touch. Next, it was time to give my monsters some personality. I used a black Sharpie to draw on their faces. You can go wild with this part and see what you can come up with. You can make the faces scary, silly, or even friendly. I sketched out some monster face ideas on paper first and ended up with a mix of expressions to keep things interesting. I especially love how that green Frankenstein guy turned out. Next, to take the decorations up a notch, it's time to add some fun accessories to our monster guys. I found these cute glittery witch hat decorations at Dollar Tree, and all I had to do was pull the long sticks off the bottom. Then, using more hot glue, I attached the hats to the top of 2 of my dice. For the spider monster, I used a toothpick to poke 4 holes into each side of the dice. I cut black pipe cleaners in half and poked them into the holes, folding them to look like spider legs. The dollar store aisles are full of fun craft supplies and holiday decor that you can use to embellish your monsters and give them each their own unique look. This could also be a really fun project to do with kids. Just watch out for the hot glue.
For this project, you're going to need some plastic tablecloths, pumpkin pails, and some tomato cages, and some lights. I'm going to start by placing the tomato cage upside down. With the part that sticks into the ground, I'm going to pull them all in together. Next, I'm going to take a pumpkin pail and place it upside down onto all of the prongs. Next, I'm going to take my lights and I'm going to use some painter's tape so that I can hold this in place at the top. But I'm going to wrap the lights around the outside of the tomato cage. You could alternatively use some Christmas lights or holiday lights as well. Next, I'll be using a round plastic tablecloth from Dollar Tree. I'm going to take the tablecloth and open it up. And once I have it all the way open, I'm going to place it over the top of the tomato cage. So now I need to make some eyes, and I'm going to be using some gaffer's tape here, and I've made a template out of a piece of paper. So what I'm going to do is trace it with a piece of chalk. Now I remove the tape, and now I'm just going to cut this piece out. So here's the finished eye, and I can rub the chalk off. One of the reasons I'm using this tape is so that it will be okay in the elements while it's outside. Now I'm going to go into my ghost and I'm going to place the eye onto my ghost. Now I'm going to repeat this process to get my second eye. Now you could easily stop here with one ghost, but I'm going to make a few more and then I'm going to show you where we're going to be putting them. Here are all 3 ghosts lined up for the trick-or-treaters.
It's time to clean out those milk jugs and do a recycling project. First thing we're going to do after cleaning it out is mark the handle and the lid on the top because we want to cut those out. Make sure you have a nice sharp razor blade. That'll make it easy, and always watch those fingers. Once you get it cut out, you can go ahead and discard that top. We're not going to need it for this project. Grab your heat gun, heat up the label for just a few seconds, and it pops right off. Next thing I had to do was order a resin skull, something that will take a bunch of heat. It's really detailed, perfect for this project. I did remove the jaw, and what I've got to do is place it on a stand. This is something I made out of wood and PVC pipe, easy to do. Go ahead and grab you some 2-part epoxy, and we're going to mix that right up. Epoxy is a super strong glue, and it's going to hold that skull to the top of the PVC pipe. Just place the glue once it's all mixed all the way around, then grab the skull and you're going to place it on top. Hold it on there for about 4 to 5 minutes and it's going to be solid. Take that cut out milk jug and we're going to place it right over and watch him do a peekaboo. Let's grab that heat gun again and we're going to just start heating up the top of the jug. we want to start forming it around the skull. Just get it hot. Now, the secret to know if it's ready to shape is it will turn from cloudy to clear, and you'll see that multiple times throughout this project. Make sure you have some good gloves on and just keep shaping. Watch this face. It's going to come right through because it clears up, meaning it's hot enough. What we want to do is poke it right there, and we're going to push the eyes in. Not too hard though. We don't want to rip them out. This way it'll give it concave. Next, we want to lock the jaw. What that means is we're going to heat it up and we're going to form it underneath. It's going to make it solid. This instructions and everything, we want to thank Jason F205 from Instructables for his wonderful tutorial on how to make these. As we do this, we're also going to grab some ice water and a sponge and use it on some of these detailed areas. That locks it in place very quickly because it cools the plastic fast enough. Look at that detail just start to pop. We're going to go ahead and just shape everything around the head and form it in place using that sponge and that ice cold water. Get it all formed all around the head and all the details. When it comes to the teeth, let's take that heat gun and a screwdriver, just push them on through to give it some more detail. Once it's ready, go ahead and go up the back of the skull with some scissors all the way to the top of the head, and it can just pop right off. Not a problem. Let's seal up the back. We just got to grab that heat gun again, just on the bottom tabs. Make sure you got your gloves. Push it in place. Once it's formed, make all the milk jugs you want, and we're going to start painting them, and it's going to make a wonderful display. We decided to go ahead and put it on our kitchen table. Stack these skulls up after we got some paint on them and some wooden flowers and a candle. Oh, it turned out beautiful, and it's a great centerpiece for a Halloween party. We hope you enjoyed this project and using recyclables. We can't wait to see you guys again on Home Talk.